All right, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being on here. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. We finally made it work between months.
Finally, yeah, it's been shoot. I think we first started talking about the podcast right after your grizzly bear hunt.
I think so too. Yeah, and then you were out, and then I was out, and then we were both out, and we were just able to squeeze one in before we probably both leave again. I think we're both out somewhere on Friday. Sounds like.
Yeah, yeah. So let's, I guess, start with that one because you just got back from Afognak for elk.
I did.
That's got to be talked about. But let's start with the grizzly bear hunt. And let's do a little bit different here. If you're going to just put three words to it, what would be the three words that you would describe your grizzly bear hunt?
Most grueling ever.
Most grueling ever.
Most grueling ever. That was, I've put my body through some pretty rigorous things, and that was by far probably the hardest I've ever pushed myself physically and mentally, and not even in just a hunt, but in life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if anybody that's hunted up here in Alaska, like most of your listeners are familiar with tussocks and um, bugs that are in the summer, like up north, and just how horrendous and those can be, and you just add all those things together plus 20 miles plus a 75-pound pack, and that just creates for the perfect storm of what the hell am I doing to myself right now.
So as a firefighter, you kind of like you chosen a career that has that physical sort of challenge. So I mean, you're prepared, but ultimately, no matter what you do in training wise, it doesn't really prepare you for outdoors. So what elements of being a firefighter prepared you for the grueling hunt, and then where did it maybe not?
Gosh, I think it's so much is transferable, and that's what I think I've come to appreciate so much about both equally, like my job and being outside, is like you can't you think that you can be prepared for anything, but really the gist of it is it's like you just have to be willing to be ready for literally anything. That same holds true for on the job and out in grizzly bear country, or anytime you're hunting anything. So I think that part is probably the most transferable. It's like you can think that you can train as hard, but until like you're in an actual like structure fire, or and things are actually going haywire, it's like you can't really train for that, but you can kind of mentally prepare yourself to be ready for anything. And I think that's probably been the best part about my job with the fire department. I'm coming up on 8 years in March, and when I came back from this hunt, I remember we had a few pretty like physically grueling calls, and I remember thinking to myself, like, this is nowhere as near as hard as like what I just put my body through like a few weeks ago, and then the same will hold true like on hunts, where it's like, yeah, this is hard, but I just did something way harder at work last week. So for anybody that's outside, like 80% of it's like a mental game that you end up just kind of flip-flopping on yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was coming up on like mile 18 and 19, slogging back to the truck, it was just such a roller coaster of like emotions. Like I felt like I literally had a little devil on my shoulder that was like, you're such a little, biatch. Like, how are you tired right now? Like, you trained for this. And then one on the other side that was like, you can do it. Like, I was seeing things, hearing things, like anything to get me back to that truck.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a wild experience.
So as a high school teacher, I always like to think about what my guests were like in high school. So
Oh
like
my God.
would high school senior you looked at those last couple miles of you making your way back to the truck and think, yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I think my future is going to be? Or like maybe would the teacher have guessed that that would be you later on in life?
It probably would have been the teacher. Like, I was very much like involved in a lot of different sports. But hunting was never, I never hunted. I was outside, and I fished and did some camping, but it wasn't until after I moved home from college and a few other things that like I really, and that was after like my collegiate soccer career also. It's like when you're kind of growing up and you're focused on, okay, well, I'm going to college to be a collegiate soccer athlete, like that's what you do. And there's really no time
Mm-hmm.
to do anything else if you want to be proficient at it. And so, I didn't go on my first hunt until about 5 years ago, but it was such a like a fluid transition that was like kicking myself like, why in the hell did I wait so long to get
Mm-hmm.
into this space? But I was occupied with other things that were
Right.
just as fulfilling, so I don't necessarily feel like I was missing out because I was still, active in the spaces that I was in. It just made the transition into like this seem pretty fluid and natural.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember growing up, fished a lot here in Southeast, but didn't hunt. And then basketball was like number one. And then go to
Yep.
college, and University of Arizona was really good, so I had no chance of playing there. But as a journalism student, I was writing about basketball, and then once I started teaching, I was coaching, and so there was like the work part of the day was the teaching, but then basketball is such a huge part of my life. And now after not coaching basketball, like hunting has just been this thing outside of work that takes so much time, energy, but that I also look forward to so much. And it's no surprise that so many hunters have an athletic background, because there's that something, that physical challenge, that deriving of confidence by doing something difficult, and then it's just like a perfect transition. But
It really
yeah, I think back, and
totally.
man, I would not have been opposed to my parents taking me out hunting when I was younger, but you can't look back and regret.
Right, because yeah, look at like what you've accomplished now, and it's like who knows the direction that your life would have taken you in.
Hmm. Was there a barrier of entry? It's not just with women, but also with men. If you're not shown how to hunt when you're a kid by family member, it can be difficult and intimidating. So, was there a bit of a barrier of entry to get you hunting, or how'd you start that?
I wouldn't necessarily say barrier of entry, but I kind of had to take it upon myself to fully recognize like this is something that is brand new to me. And, like any athlete, nobody likes not being good at something. So it's like, if I want to do this, like I recognize I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. There is some element of, yeah, like you got to struggle through and figure some things out. But, luckily I'm surrounded by, a lot of really great friends and people that are kind of involved in that space out here. And if once it came to like buying my first rifle, like I had maybe too many cooks in the kitchen.
Mm.
But like asking people advice and questions, and ultimately it just came down to me. It's like, okay, I can gather all this info, do my own research, and ultimately I need to be happy and confident in my choices that I'm making. So the same held true for, purchasing a rifle or like going on a hunt or like what type of, I mean, the gear list, obviously endless.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't necessarily say barrier, but, um, finding, people to hunt with all the time. It's like that part, has been somewhat challenging. It's like, you talk to guys that have been hunting with the same group for 15 plus years, or like the same moose camp, it's like they
Hmm.
got their situation dialed, and it's like you're not just getting invited anywhere,
Yeah.
um so I kind of had to create some of those of like my own. It's like, okay, well, I'm can't just get an easy invite onto any of these hunts. So if I want to do something, I either kind of need to take the reins and like make a plan myself and then maybe invite somebody else to come along. Um, and that's kind of what I'm doing this year with this blacktail hunt. Last year was the first year I did that one, and I brought a few girlfriends, and it ended up being awesome. And now I feel really good going in. I'm like confident in like how to hunt, where we're hunting, and like the whole program. Whereas last year it was like kind of a fish out of water, and I'm just like, fuck it. Like, we're just gonna see how this goes, you know? Because like
Yeah.
I have no idea. I've never hunted blacktail before, and it ended up being great, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty funny about moose camp. Because down here, there's a lot of people who hunt, but you can kind of go anywhere and you can kind of cycle through some different areas. And if you want to hunt someone with like who isn't your hunting buddy, you can go to maybe a lesser sort of area so you don't reveal anything to this new person. And it's
Sure.
like, all right, we'll go to a C or a B spot, but also I'm not really sure how you're going to handle the hiking and the miles. So let's go to somewhere that we can have a good experience and then maybe get a deer. But up there in Moose Camp, I was talking with Jack and he was saying, yeah, in order to get you have to get invited after years and years, but it's more likely that someone has to like pass away or move in order for you to take up a spot. And even then, it's pretty crazy. So I thought, man, that's that's pretty
Yeah,
crazy. People don't mess
you
around with
gotta get
moose.
like grandfathered in to that type of stuff, you know. And like, you know, John, who I was hunting with in Afognak, he's been hunting the same moose camp for, God, I think at this point, like something like 52 years.
Whoa, that's crazy. But
Super crazy. Like I could have sat around all day and listened to his hunting stories, but he's so modest that it was like pulling teeth to get anything out of the man.
yeah, that I kind of like that about the older generation is some of those people can tell really good stories, but they're so unencumbered with any sort of social media presence, and they're so happy and content with just telling it to whoever's going to listen. There's no, you know, I like
There's
telling
no audience.
stories. I
Yep,
know.
it's that. Yeah, it's whoever's sitting down, you know, having a cocktail, coming back from a hunt. It's like whoever's lucky enough to just happen to be in the right place in the right time, you can just get hit with like infinite wisdom,
Yeah.
you know, from these guys. And he was more apt to telling me about other people's success
Mm,
than his own.
yeah. Yeah, that's such a cool thing. And there's nothing against podcasts and I'm writing 'cause as a writer and as a podcaster, I like to tell stories and like to hear people's stories. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that it's better or worse, but man, it makes you appreciate the kind of the old timers, those people who, just do the thing for doing the thing's sake, not so they can leverage it or so that they can make anything about it. So it's not a production. And man, it's really cool, and it's cool to be influenced by those sort of people, and you get that frame of reference. I think if your only experience about hunting and what hunting is like is just what you've seen on YouTube, then you can be influenced by a more showy sort of attitude and a more antlers are the only thing and any shot to get the shot and record everything. Whereas if you have some people who have been hunting for a long time, you can kind of get that really good bounce. You can tell a story in a way that kind of understands hunting as it was and now as it is, and I think you can pay homage to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it really inspired me to like ditch everything and go out in a flannel and some jeans and like a frame pack and like that's it. It's like that's what they did. You know what I mean? And like we
Yeah,
got it so good and so easy, like compared to like what all these old timers were doing. It's you know, it's humbling.
yeah.
Um, just a bunch of savage badasses.
I was talking with my buddy last week, and we're out at his cabin, and he was telling me about how when he was a kid, his dad took him out in a skiff, and they had to be rescued by a commercial fishing boat because back in the day, you got a weather report, and like you don't go on your app and see what the winds are going to do, and you don't get these sophisticated atmospheric models that tell you exactly what the weather is going to be at this time of day. It's a rough estimate of a rough area,
Yep.
and even now with all that sophisticated stuff, like the weather can be wrong. And so they were out there in this skiff, and it was 5 footers, and it was they were about ready to roll, and he was like 7 or 8 years old. But that's his memories of just doing it and getting it. And I thought, man, yeah, there's no SOS. There was no in reach. There was no, and it's just so different in how easy it is for us now to judge the weather and make a decision based on weather. And then when we're out there, you can track things on your OnX and you can do all these things. And it's pretty nice.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
back then it was just like save yourself. Like
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's get to the grizzly bear hunt. So you got one, and it was way back in there. But what's kind of the abbreviated story?
Man, yeah, that was my first predator hunt. Um, So yeah, like it was a lot of learning. The guy that I was with was bow hunting, and I had my bow, but was also, that's I'm such a new bow hunter also that like I haven't got to the point yet where I'm like leaving the rifle at home. Like I'm not too proud for sure.
Yeah.
So both came and I packed both, and we really didn't see any sign much for like the first handful of days, and it wasn't until the hike out where we kind of came like nose to nose with this like beautiful blonde sow, and she was probably at that point like, I don't know, 100 yards. um but where we were at, we kind of had to, the wind wasn't necessarily in our favor, and she saw us and she ended up just kind of skirting like way around and ended up putting a stalk on her, but it ended up putting us back in further. um and it was kind of I don't want to say perfect stalk by any means, but the wind had shifted. It seemed like she kind of knew we were there. But I ended up landing like a perfect 200-yard shot right behind her shoulder, and it was later in the afternoon at this point, but we had started our hike out that day. But and I'm sure you can relate, and anybody can relate, that you've been in scenarios where you're like, God, just I've gotten hung up, and it's really bitten me in the ass every time, but like I just never will leave my pack anymore. And so what did we do? We left our packs.
Right.
And so by the time, okay, bear down, we had to hike back out 3 miles to grab our packs, 3 miles back to the bear, and then, the remaining like 12 whatever miles to get out. So it ended up being about 21 miles on the day. Stumbled back to the truck at like 1 a.m. and just swamp, storm. But it's like you would think that, that torrential downpour that kind of comes down would like move any of those bugs around, but it was like the same 2,000 mosquitoes swarming my face the entire time. And like I was haunted in my dreams for like the following few weeks after that from just like the hum. I don't think, if I didn't have that mosquito net, like I probably would have taken a bullet. But it was awesome. And I actually, when I just went and dropped my elk off for the Euro, my guy Christian at Grizzly Taxidermy here in Anchorage had my bear done, and that's laying across my ottoman right now. And it's
Nice.
the most beautiful blonde thing I've ever seen.
Nice. That's
So
awesome.
like kind of anticlimactic, but like it was a really cool experience. And I, was like, okay, that is, you know, close to what I feel like I can put my body through, like the peak.
Hmm.
And, but had the truck been 5 more miles, yeah, I would have gone 5 more miles. So it's just one of those, it's just, you just do it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I got a buddy who's he's done a bunch of hiking and weightlifting and stuff, and he's like, well, you're gonna do it. Like, you're not gonna stay here. You're not gonna stay on this mountain and perish. So you might as well not complain too much about it. Like, you can accept the misery, but you have to go. There's no other alternative. So
I mean,
just
that's
do it.
what's so funny, right? Like, I'm sure we have friends that are guides and that, do all these different things. And I've heard these stories of clients being out there and like, no, I can't do that. And it's like, well, what do you think the alternative is?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to pick your ass up. Like, cross that river.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you're going to do. Like, that's where we got to go. Like, the river's not going to disappear.
Yeah. I
But
don't know.
not everybody's built the same. And, sometimes it takes really, really uncomfortable situations for people to figure out, like, what they're made of.
Yeah. When people talk about the self-esteem you get from hunting, people assume that it's just you get self-esteem from killing an animal, and that's not it at all. There the times of your life where you have to prove what you're made of, and you get the chance to either be exposed or rise to the occasion. Like, it's fun to rise to the occasion. It's fun to feel that satisfaction. Yes, it absolutely does suck, but just to find like this new level of something that you can do and accomplish, like, that's that's real and that's genuine, and you don't get those opportunities a whole lot. Not that you really ask for them, because that means that you're going to have to be uncomfortable. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing like it being out there, and it sucks, and you take some breaks, but you just get it done, and you're not that far removed from being a hunter gatherer. Like if it was 500 years ago, you might actually survive. Probably not, but maybe.
Yeah. Totally.
From billion-dollar ad budgets and arena naming rights to tens of thousands of retail locations, big wireless providers spend big to appear like they're your only option. How do they afford it all? That big bill you get at the end of every month. Mint Mobile had a different idea. Instead of brick and mortar overhead, Mint Mobile is online only. What does that mean for you? A whole lot of savings, because wireless plans from Mint Mobile start at just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You'll save enough that you can get a brand new rod and reel for the upcoming season. For anyone who just hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you can even keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. By going online only and eliminating traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes significant savings on to you. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
So moving on to elk, you got the bear. You were excited. Was there anything that you maybe learned from the bear hunt that made you think, okay, I got this mindset going into to the elk hunt? Because the Afognak elk is renowned for elk and also for big, huge brown bears. So was there anything different in the mental preparation or gear wise or anything?
I feel like, you kind of just hear those horror stories about like Kodiak brown bears, and that's just, they're aggressive, they're everywhere. So I was fully ready and anticipating that. But, even going into this hunt, John, who is the reason that I went over there, John Sturgeon, he kind of warned me. He's like, Emily, I hate to break it to you, but this isn't going to be like your normal, like, hunt. I know you like to get out there, boots on the ground, kind of get after it. He's like, we kind of got it good. So he's got years invested in that logging operation over there. So we had quite a few luxuries that most people that hunt that area do not have. So I was very grateful, and that he was the reason that I went. He was the one that had suggested I put in for that tag, and when those came out, he was the first one I got a text from that was like, looks like we're going elk hunting, which is awesome. So yeah, for those that don't know, John Sturgeon, he's kind of, I feel like an icon in Alaska as far as like hunters' rights and advocacy, and I've never met a more involved and invested person into like rights for Alaskans and Alaskan hunters. So it was quite an honor to, kind of be included in the accolades of, elk hunters that he's had over there, kind of staying at his operation. So I had a little debacle at the airport getting out. So I got hung up in Kodiak an extra night and ended up getting into camp a day late. So our first day out, there was another hunter in the group, and we were in a group of 4. But I finally made it out, so I wasn't able to shoot that day, but we were still looking for elk ware for the other hunter. And so this is where, yeah, it gets a little different, because I've had people express like that is the most grueling hunt like I've ever experienced, and the only grueling part was like for us is like we were in a truck for a long amount of time. So I fully recognized that like this was an abnormal for this area, but this is how, you know, John did it and does it. So I was happy to be, just a part of it.
Yeah.
But on day two, I ended up spotting, this herd that was probably about a mile from the road. And, it was one of the first times I ever got to hear like a bugle response. So that was really exciting. It was the first time I'd seen an elk in person, also wild. And so where we were hunting, it's these logging roads and there's acres of like clear cut around some of these areas where we're looking for the herd. So like these trees that are cut off at the stump, like to me, they all look like a giant herd of elk.
Mm,
So that was a learning curve, just because you don't know, you don't know. I didn't know what I was looking for until you
right.
see them. And like, it was actually like John was driving the road creeping. I was like, actually, John, can you back up a second? So he backs up and I caught the ass end, of a few elk that were like moving in through some of the thicker stuff about a mile off the road. So he drives a little bit further. Three of us, kind of haul up, making a plan and put a stalk on him. And this was probably like 9 a.m. And through, anybody that's been over to Kodiak knows that like you can't hide like from any of the thick raspberry, like you're just in it. You can sometimes skirt around if you get into the spruce, like the bigger trees and stuff, but we kind of whacked our way up and miraculously we landed like on this knob that ended up being like right on top of them. They kind of ended up being in a cut, like in the thick, the thick of the thick. And, we spotted this group of like 4 or 5 cows, and the guy that was in front of me was like, he kind of mouthed back like, they're right here, like 4 or 5 cows. And so I chambered one and I kind of crept up behind him, and just as I got next to him, one lifted its head up, and I was like, well, I'm no scientist or biologist, but that definitely doesn't look like a cow to me. And ended up being that bull that I spotted from the road. So I was able to shoot at 40 yards and put it down. And then the other guy in the group decided he wanted to take a cow that was like just as big as the bull that I took. So, all of a sudden, day two, we had 2 monster elk down, and it was 10:30 in the morning, and
Dang.
It was awesome. We got blessed on the weather, never had to wear our rain gear once.
Nice. That's very rare. I have a couple buddies who have gone up to Kodiak, or actually acquaintances, I should say, that they've gone up there and it's been sunny. Said you have not got the true Kodiak experience. I've never been there, but it's the same sort of thing as if someone comes up here to Southeast Alaska and hunts. If you don't get the rain, then you did not get the experience. Same thing with Kodiak.
Yep. So luckily I got the full experience last year when I was there for my first time. Rain, sun, snow, wind, hail, like repeat for a week straight. So it was like the best day of just packing out meat. Weather was perfect. We never had any bear encounters. I made the first load out by myself, because the other 2 guys didn't have packs with them. So they stayed up and butchered meat, and I, worked the 3/4 of the mile back to the truck. And at that point, like I was a little bit nervous, but I had, my sidearm on my chest. I was obnoxiously loud, like,
Was that the video that you shared?
supposed to do,
Yeah. Was that the video that you put on Instagram?
Oh yeah, where I'm just like, no, thank you, not today, mother lover. Like you do what you got to do. And then like finally, once I got the truck inside, I was like, okay, I think I'm home free. And John was insistent. He wanted to come up and like help pack a load out. So like, who am I to tell him no? But just like he's my dad. I was worried. He's almost 80, but a badass and a savage. So it was just, yep, let's go. You want to go? Let's go. And then we ended up making 2 more loads with our group, and then got both elk out, and we're like back to camp by 6 o'clock. And it was really, really cool. Felt awesome to have like a heavy pack, everybody contributed. You know, it was sunny. We didn't have any mishaps. Nobody got hurt. Um, and then we're like, shit, that's the end of the hunt. Like it was kind of a bummer, you know, like I was hopeful that like, you know, maybe the other guy in the group wasn't going to shoot and we could still kind of keep looking for, you know, another herd for the next few days. But pressure was off. Everybody was happy. John will do anything for elk meat. So he was happy. And it was really, really neat.
So there was, because you weren't super way back in there or flown at or anything, you didn't really have that experience of the gun goes off, the elk is down, and is something on its way. So you had like the limited bear experience, but nothing that was too crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I was nervous for the third pack out because we took the cow down on the second one, and then it took us a while to get back up there for the third. But we had bagged all mine up in game bags and drug them and put them in some, you know, not super high up, but like probably, you know, 50 yards away from where the gut pile was. But on our way back up, there was fresh bear shit and like new tracks. So it's like they knew we were there. So I was a little bit nervous that we were going to come up and some quarters were going to be missing. But we did, other than that day, like we saw bears every day, but it was always from the safety of like a truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was really cool to like get eyes on and just like watch them and see them move. And they're big, you know.
Yeah, I was, growing up down here, we have black bears on Prince of Wales, and then here in Ketchikan area, we have mostly black bears. So just that's what we're used to. And I've shot one deer, and by the time I was able to get to it, because it was down in a clear cut, there was a black bear that was on its way to claim it, and I just kind of came around the corner, and it was there, and it was surprised, and I was surprised, and it hadn't claimed it to the point where it was territorial, and so I just like yelled at it, and then it took off, and so the entire time I was butchering it. But brown bears, grizzly bears, a lot more aggressive. I was up on that caribou hunt last month. Was it last month? Yeah. Shot the caribou, took off the fronts, and then hung those in a tree. And then because it was starting to get dark, so we went back to camp, but we put the caribou, we separated it from the guts, and then put it in some brush, but not so hidden where we wouldn't be able to see if the grizzly was on it. So it was in a spot where we didn't really worry too much about it, but you start to think, all right, well, there's not enough trees to really hang it anywhere. So this is kind of the option that we have. And we put everything in an area where we can get we can get the wind, we can look at it, see if there's anything claiming it. So you hear the stories and you think that it's the dinner bell and the bears are going to come in, but if you just do what you're supposed to do, then for the most part, you really should be fine.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. And there's always that rare scenario where it's like you catch an ornery one, and they're going to do what they're going to do, even if you do everything right. But yeah, I don't, whether you want to call it luck or just being efficient or like aware, we made out pretty good this time. And then my first time in Kodiak last year, we also didn't have any, encounters, even though like there were sign and we saw quite a few. Whenever we had bucks down, it was like, let's gut, let's move, drag them to the beach, did the cover up thing, and it ended up working out good. So, yeah, who knows, luck or just probably a combination of a few things. But I'm actually, heading back to Kodiak on Friday for a blacktail hunt.
Nice.
So I'll be doing the same kind of thing come next week.
Are you using the same rifle for everything?
Yeah, I got a Tika 300 Win Mag, and like I was mentioning to you earlier, it's I kind of asked people from some opinions, like what they think a good all-around rifle was, and then ultimately I was like, yep, this one looks great, and so far it's done well for me. I've killed quite a few things, and it's all been minus the bear this year, like everything has been 200 yards or below, like, so I haven't really had to test it. and like its reach, but yeah, I've been really happy with it so far.
Yeah, most of my shots have been, I don't know, I think the furthest shot was a 220, maybe something like that. Or I think maybe the mule deer was 300, but yeah, shoot, there's really not much of a need. 150 to 250 yards, like you're going to be in great shape. So, it's
Yeah.
something you shoot effectively. And that's, gosh, one of the things it, if you say anything about a 6.5 Creedmoor, then there's just going to be people yelling, talking, whatever. What caliber is the best caliber? Just so many people saying, oh, nothing smaller than this or that. And it is crazy. So I'm
Lots of
just
opinions.
so many opinions. And a lot of it doesn't even, like, you choose what you're good at shooting and something that you're comfortable with and you're happy with, and then you just go with that. Whether it be I shoot a 270, and we've used that. My wife and I both got our goats with a 270. All the deer, a couple black bear with the 270. It's just what I shoot well. What I use that for. I use that in my caribou too.
Sure.
But it's fine. I think we can get caught up with all the with the gear and with the patterns and with the rifles and everything else. And I don't know. We should. I don't know. Talk about whatever you want, I guess.
I know, and I'm sure I'm going to be guilty because I'm kind of a gearhead, and I like my stuff to be, work well, and I mean, just like anybody, but I can see myself just kind of going down a rabbit hole once it comes to, rifles. And that is like one area, yeah, that I'm very inexperienced other than like what I have. But I can see, down the line, maybe evolving to something else. But yeah, right now, this is what I've had, and I've taken lots of different critters with it. So it's done a pretty good job for me.
Yeah, I think it's. I equate this to fly fishing a lot. When I first started off fly fishing, I had that, $75 starter kit. So the thing casted like a 2x4, but because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know any different, like it was just what I had. And then once you get more
Yeah,
experience, you start
you're
to think,
right.
all right, well, this is what I want. And if I want a fly rod that's 6 inches longer, I want it to be more forgiving, more stiff, or whatever it is. And then once you have a frame of reference, then you can want something more. But as far as the rifle goes, I haven't found anything that I really would want different. Like I still
Well,
don't know after the hunting and after everything. I don't know what I would benefit from getting a rifle that's more expensive or more anything else. So,
yeah,
especially shooting from where I do, I'm not shooting 600 yards. I'm not doing any of those sort of things.
yeah. And I mean, if you or I are like we got in this scenario, like the only like I can picture myself like in sheep country,
Mm.
and I don't know if I'd feel comfortable shooting mine at 600. That's just one of those where you kind of got to go to the range and like really put in the hours and the time to feel confident like shooting that far accurately. And I just haven't done that yet.
Yeah, it's funny too because I think the same thing with sheep when it comes to rifle and then also optics. Like really good set of binos and then spotting scopes, you can really make a good decision. I've got Vortex and I like it, but again, I'm not. I'm using that mostly for scouting. I don't take it on
Yeah.
my alpine deer hunts or goat hunts or anything like that. But to really scrutinize, you need really, really good glass. And then I start thinking, well, people also archery hunt sheep. So I'm thinking, man,
Right.
I got to be prepared for at least 400-yard shot. But then, dudes are sneaking up with stick bows. I'm like, all right, well, whatever.
Right. You're getting into 40 yards. Cool, neat. I'll just go throw myself off a cliff now.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is it's so easy to compare yourself and think, man, this person has. You listen to Tyler Friel's podcast, and in his place where he records the podcast, he's got all of his sheep like looking down at you. You're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This guy's like
Just like
a sheep
shame,
master.
shame.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing about him is like he doesn't have that arrogance. Like he doesn't sound like the type of person who thinks he's better than everybody else. But man, you just look at some people's resume and what they're able to do and the stories they have, and man, like, man, you're so much better than I am at the outdoor stuff. But like that's a trap too.
Oh my God, it all is. It's like there's just you can't compare, and there's those guys out there that want to showboat and think that whatever they're shooting is better than the next guy, or like you're not as good. Oh, because I'm a bow hunter, and that makes me. And it's just there's so much whatever measuring going on. It's like, as long we're all on the same team here,
Hmm.
like it doesn't matter. Like we're all in the outdoor space. We all, for the most part, hopefully have the same goals, and we're going about it like in the proper way. It's like there's quite a bit of competition and not always healthy,
Hmm.
you know.
Who are some people that you look up to and think that they're doing it pretty well?
Oh man. Um, I had a buddy ask me the other day, like, who's a chick that you think is just like the real deal, like not doing anything for like clout or whatever the right way. And, her and I are like kind of new friends, but I'd probably say Tana,
Mm.
who lives out in King Salmon, Tana Grenda, like their life revolves around, you know, hunting and providing, and then teaching their kids, like the younger generation, everything as far as like trapping, processing meat, like taking care of yourself out in the field. Like their world revolves around the outdoor space, and it's pretty admirable. And I definitely enjoy like keeping up with her and checking in every once in a while. So I'd probably say her. And really, it's like, you know, on the opposite end too, like anybody that's like new, that's just like me, that was like trying to get after it and figure things out. It's like they're just as inspiring as anybody else. It's like, because I was just in their shoes, 5 years ago.
Hmm.
So I think both ends of the spectrum are, it's pretty neat.
Do people ask you more what woman hunter you look up to, or just hunter in general?
I mean, I've never really had anybody besides my one buddy and you, um, ask me.
Hmm.
So, um, you know, like I don't want to say that like I don't really look up to anybody. It's like I feel like I'm inspired by a lot of different people, and it's like, oh, that hunt looked badass, or that looked challenging as shit. Like that's cool. I want to try that, or like maybe on my next hunt, I'll do what he did or what she did. And
Hmm.
there's just so many people that are kicking ass in the outdoor space, so it's really hard to like pinpoint even just a handful, to
Yeah.
me at least.
Yeah, I think it's. I was talking with a friend, female hunter down in lower 48, and she was saying there's kind of this. It's a subtle like diss to say, or in the industry, because it's like, oh, it's just a badass for a girl type attitude that some of the people have about women hunters, and I thought I don't know if that.
I don't even know what that means. What's that mean?
I don't know, because I think that growing up here is that you just know like badassery is badassery. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. That's just part of the culture up here. You just do the thing, and so we don't
I
really have to have this sort of, well, hey, that's pretty impressive for a girl versus a man could definitely do it better. I grew up knowing so many people who like everyone like had the potential. It's just
Yeah,
part of the culture, and it didn't really matter either way.
yeah, I totally agree. And like, it was funny when I came out with that last load and John was back at the truck on this elk hunt. I kind of like to tease and call him my Alaska dad, because my dad doesn't live here. And, you know, he invited me on this hunt. So it's like there's part of me that's feeling this pressure. Like I want to make him proud, like, because I know people are going to ask, oh, how'd the elk hunt go? And I felt like I wanted to do him right, And so when I'm coming down with this last load and I had like 2 racks of ribs and the head on my back, he was like, forced me to stop. And he's like, wait, 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 I want to take your picture. He was like, man, you are one tough dude, and it was just so cute. And just like you said, though, it's like badassery takes all form, and it's like you can't deny somebody like getting after it, male or female. Like to me, it doesn't really matter. And it's like, especially because I'm in like that fire department space also. So, it kind of is transferable. I don't know. There's a few people on the department, or maybe that used to be, that would get offended by the term fireman.
Hmm.
that's just like, we're all firemen, we're all outdoorsmen, we're all, we're all doing the same thing, have the same goal.
Hmm.
So, not everybody looks at it that way, but I think we both do.
Yeah.
And there's a few other people that do also.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So what's next on you got the blacktail trip? What are you looking forward to with regards to that?
Yeah. Like I kind of mentioned before, there's a little bit of stress taken away because I know what to anticipate this time. Whereas last year it was just a little bit of anxiety about the unknown of like how we're gonna hunt, what we're gonna hunt, like the entire operation. So I'm going in this year, still with like high hopes of being successful, but just kind of a little bit more at ease and just excited to kind of get back over there. And last year being my first year, I was like, I get it now. I get it why people are obsessed with Kodiak and always go back year after year. So you got to get over there.
Yeah.
Because it does it, like, kind of sucks you in. Like, you'll get lured in by days like I had last week, and then it'll kick you in the ass and spit you out. But then it'll be sunny again the next day. And then you're like, God, I freaking love it here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I don't have much of a desire to go to Kodiak. I think the things are, pretty comparable down here as
Yeah.
far as like blacktail deer go and mountain goat. But yeah, the elk. And we have elk down here too, but I think that Afognak is kind of an iconic elk hunt.
Do you put in for elk every year?
Yeah, I have. I don't win anything, so I don't even know if I put in last year for it, but there's some caribou tags and of course some sheep tags that I'll never draw. But
Not with that attitude.
I'm trying to reverse jinx it.
Yeah, you'll show them.
Yeah, the cool thing about it is, like, if you save money, like you're going to do it anyway. And so then if you don't draw, you can immediately just start thinking, okay, well, let's plot something else. Let's go big somewhere. So it's either going big with a hunt that I draw or going big with something I didn't draw, but maybe you can get a little bit further away. You can make that over the counter tag experience a little more fun, a little bit more adventurous. So, I mean, it's super cliche, but man, we're all winners just by living here.
I mean, and that's what's so funny, is cliche, like you said, as it sounds like, when people say, oh yeah, I can't go this year, I didn't draw anything, I just look at them and I'm like, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I might have been like, oh yeah, totally, what a bummer. And now I'm like, are you crazy? Just go pick something and go hunt it.
Mhm.
Like, you don't need a tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely are lucky in that sense. And not agree more.
Yeah, I get scared about if you start to adopt that, and if you don't do something new or fresh or whatever, you just fall into that routine. And I don't think it is with like the moose. People go to their moose camp, and because that's usually like a 2 week season, so you do your 7 days or you ever do that. But just that idea of only having like one experience per year, so 51 weeks out of the year, you're dreaming about that 1 week, which you can do. But if you don't do anything else, you're missing out on so much. And you have to be involved in so many other things in Alaska just to make it through. Because hunting season, I mean, if you just hunt blacktail deer, if you just hunt moose, or you just do a Dall sheep hunt, there's so much else to do. And
It's
if you
like,
don't,
God, what do people normal jobs do?
yeah, why? Yeah, I don't know. It kind of,
Oh, I don't know. Like, I had a buddy that's kind of been trying to rope me into this profession that he's in, and meanwhile, he's also telling me he's going on his first vacation in 8 years, and I'm like, bro, I go on a vacation every 5 days. Like, no way I'm gonna go do what you're doing. I don't care that you make more money than I do. That sounds miserable.
yeah. Yeah, I wish that part of the recruitment process wasn't just recruiting new hunters so that we'd have more advocates. I wish it was more just recruiting that lifestyle of just doing something that makes you happy on the weekends, as simple as possible, just something. And, that's the thing about Alaskans, the fact that we have the abuse rates that we do and the suicide rates that we do. Because, I mean, it's tough to get through the winters. It's cold, it's dark and all that, but there's so many productive things that we can do heading into winter that you just got to be connected to a community, and whether it's a hunting community or hiking community or fat tire biking community or just something to get you out. So,
Yeah.
you can live the best of everything that's up here. And it's really sad that someone can live here and not see it as just full of opportunities.
Yeah, I have a hard time, and I'm sure you do too, with people that are on the opposite end of that spectrum and just, don't see the value or don't appreciate what they have here. And then we're probably like, so why do you live here? It's like, go live somewhere else, but not everybody has that luxury or that kind of mindset yet. Sometimes it takes something to push them a little bit out of their comfort zone.
Yeah. I see that with students, and it's outside of their control because they're kids. But, even like they're at parent-teacher conferences, there's always a couple parents who are like, yeah, we used to go, I try to get him out hunting, and we used to go hunting when we were younger or fishing, but now, he just likes to play games or be on the phone or this, that. I'm thinking, oh man, that's so bad, because a kid doesn't realize those pressure, the amount of time that you have with your parents after you graduate high school is so small comparatively. And to have those meaningful trips to the outdoors to hunt or hike or fish or be miserable in a Forest Service cabin or just something, that's the opportunity just goes. And, and the kids that there used to be that nice buffer. You went to West, right, in Anchorage? And
I did. Yep.
yeah, and you were there before the social media and everything proliferated. So like you had to be friends in person with people, and it just made the experience so much richer. And now it's, I hate to be the old person who's just complaining about the social media, but man, that's one of the problems we'll have going forward.
Yeah, I feel like we grew up in a good time. We saw a lot, like the internet and just so much happened. I'm almost 40, maybe I'm almost 40 in a few years. But yeah, I feel like we kind of had it when it was good, and maybe even earlier. Yeah, I couldn't imagine, trying to be a teacher in the age that we're in now with all the distractions of a teacher or a parent, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be interesting. I used to get a lot of laughs when I dress up as like Buddy the Elf or something like that, but now kids have scrolled through so many reels of so much ridiculous stuff. Like it's hard to compete.
Yeah, I can only imagine. God, I didn't even think. That's so funny. I freaking love Elf.
So to kind of close here, what would you recommend to someone who is just getting into hunting or thinking about hunting, or what's kind of your pitch? I know you kind of mentioned it, but what would be your pitch to get into it?
Man, yeah, I guess my first suggestion would be to kind of connect with anybody that you're close with or maybe not close with. You kind of got to put yourself out there a little bit and be a little bit vulnerable and recognize like, okay, hey, I'm new to this space and I want to get involved and I don't really know what to do, but I'm ready to learn, and just kind of have a positive outlook and force yourself to get uncomfortable and recognize that there's going to be a lot of uncomfortable scenarios, and that's all kind of part of the fun. That's kind of what I did when I, found myself like a single woman wanting to get involved. I messaged John and I was like, well, the first thing he suggested that I do was become a member of SCI. And so I did that, got invited to a few meetings, a few things, and then events, and then you meet other people and you kind of just got to keep the ball rolling and stay involved. Another thing, like go to a local, I'd never picked up a bow before until last fall. I went into a shop here in Anchorage and fully was like, I want to learn how to shoot a bow. And I spent like 4 hours in there and ended up taking a lesson from somebody. So it's really just getting out of your comfort zone, recognizing that there's going to be a lot of learning and uncomfortability, but it's like, if you want to do it, it's like, it's all part of the process and all part of the fun, and that much more rewarding, if you just grind it out. Nothing that's earned is easy. So
awesome.
that would probably be my pitch.
That's a good pitch. But thanks, Emily, for being on here. Really appreciate it. Always great to talk to you, and looking forward to seeing the recap of your
Cool.
next adventure.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you.
Take care.
Bye.